Hey everybody, welcome to a special Christmas episode of Gary Talks. Today, I'm going to be looking at my top 10 favorite Christmas movies, and I have a very special guest lined up, the director of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Jeremiah S. Chechik. Now this was kind of difficult for me because I really love Christmas movies and TV specials. Every year, from the day after Thanksgiving all the way until the very end of the day on Christmas, I watch nothing but Christmas movies and specials. But I think I've been able to narrow it down to what I consider to be my 10 favorites. I will not be including any Christmas specials on this ranking though, so no Rankin Bass, no Charlie Brown, no Garfield, nothing like that. Maybe next year I'll do an episode looking at those, but right now, this is just Christmas feature films. So let's jump right in with my number 10, The Santa Claus 2. Certainly, I can't be the only person who prefers The Santa Claus 2 to the original, can I? The Santa Claus 2 brings Tim Allen back in the iconic red suit as Scott Calvin, aka Santa Claus. 8 years after the original, Scott has fully embraced his role as Santa, spreading holiday cheer. But there's a new twist. He discovers a hidden clause, the Mrs. Claus, which means he needs to find a wife by Christmas Eve, or he loses his Santa powers forever. The sequel really leans into the festive magic with a charming mix of comedy and heart. Tim Allen's portrayal of Santa is as lovable as ever, blending his sarcastic wit with the warmth you'd expect from St. Nick. The film also introduces a quirky villain, a robotic toy Santa, leading to plenty of humorous hijinks at the North Pole. The moment where Scott, or Santa, gives all the teachers the toys they loved as kids is my favorite in the entire series, and sums up why The Santa Claus 2 is so great. Number 9 is the oldest movie on my list, the 1947 version of Miracle on 34th Street. Miracle on 34th Street is a timeless holiday classic that continues to enchant audiences over 75 years after its release. Directed by George Seaton, the film stars Edmund Gwynn as Kris Kringle, a charming old man who insists he's the real Santa Claus. When Chris is hired to be Macy's department store Santa, he brings joy to children and skepticism to the adults, leading to a heartwarming courtroom battle to prove his identity. The film's real magic lies in its blend of whimsy and sincerity. Gwynn delivers a pitch-perfect performance, making Chris both lovable and believable, so much so that he actually won an Oscar for the role. Maureen O'Hara plays the no-nonsense Doris Walker who struggles to protect her young daughter Susan from believing in fairy tales. But as Chris begins to work his magic, even the most cynical of hearts are softened. With its clever dialogue, touching themes of faith, kindness, and the true spirit of Christmas, Miracle on 34th Street is more than just a holiday movie. It's a feel-good celebration of hope and goodwill. Next up is number 8, Home Alone. Just to get an idea of how big Home Alone was, it came out for Christmas, and I didn't see it in the theaters until I took my dad to see it on Father's Day, over 6 months after it was released, and it was still packed. Written by John Hughes, the film follows 8-year-old Kevin McAllister, who is accidentally left behind when the family jets off to Paris for the holidays. At first, Kevin relishes the freedom of having the house to himself, indulging in junk food and scaring the pizza delivery driver, but things take a turn when Harry and Marv, the infamous wet bandits, attempt to break into the McAllister home. What follows is a hilarious series of booby traps and slapstick comedy as Kevin outsmarts them, and let's be honest, probably should have killed them with some of his traps. The film balances laugh-out-loud moments with heartwarming scenes, especially as Kevin learns the value of family and the true spirit of Christmas. The catchy score by John Williams adds a magical touch, making the holiday atmosphere even more enchanting. Ultimately, Home Alone is a feel-good, family-friendly film that, unlike the rest of us, never gets old. Number 7 is a movie that I watch, and I bet a lot of you watch, each and every Christmas morning, A Christmas Story. Released in 1983 and directed by Bob Clark, A Christmas Story might not be the most plot-heavy film on this list, as it's more about a series of nostalgic scenes, each showcasing the ups and downs of being a kid at Christmas. The film is narrated by an adult Ralphie, voiced by Gene Shepard, who co-wrote the film. Reflecting on his childhood dream of getting a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas, young Ralphie goes to great lengths to convince everyone, from his parents to his teacher to Santa himself, that this is the perfect gift, only to be met with the same warning.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
What makes A Christmas Story so memorable is its charming blend of humor, warmth, and timeless holiday chaos. The quirky family dynamics are both relatable and endearing, capturing the highs and lows of the holiday season. Its heartwarming yet irreverent tone makes it a perfect blend of comedy and sentimentality. Coming in at number 6 is a movie that will make a lot of you mad. Half of you will be mad that I included it on this list at all, and the other half will be mad that I've only ranked it at number 6. That movie is Die Hard. Oh, the age-old argument. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie or is it not? And I'm here to say yes, it most certainly is. Directed by John McTiernan and starring Bruce Willis as NYPD cop John McClane, the entire film is set on Christmas Eve. McClane arrives in Los Angeles to reunite with his estranged wife at her office Christmas party, but things take a turn when terrorists, led by the awesome Hans Gruber, take over the building. First off, the movie is filled with Christmas themes: reconciliation, family, and redemption. The festive soundtrack features songs like Let It Snow and Christmas in Hollis, which amplifies the holiday atmosphere, even as bullets are flying. And the holiday setting isn't just a backdrop. Christmas is completely part of the plot. Ultimately, Die Hard uses the Christmas season as more than just a decoration. It's a story about coming together, perseverance, and good triumphing over evil, all wrapped in a bow of action-packed fun. And for anyone who claims that it can't be a Christmas movie because it was released in the summertime, so is Miracle on 34th Street. So yes, Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie, and it's also one of the greatest ever made. Coming in at number 5, The Ref. If there is one movie on this list that a lot of you haven't seen, it's The Ref. Directed by Ted Demme, the film stars Dennis Leary as Gus, a cynical, unlucky thief who takes a dysfunctional couple, played by Kevin Spacey and Judi Davis, hostage on Christmas Eve. Instead of getting the upper hand, Gus finds himself playing an impromptu marriage counselor to the constantly bickering couple, and things only further spiral into chaos when their quirky relatives arrive for dinner. The film really shines with its razor-sharp dialogue and biting humor. Leary delivers a standout performance as the quick-witted, foul-mouthed intruder whose frustration with the couple becomes the heart of the comedy. While The Ref is undeniably funny, it also offers surprisingly poignant insights into relationships and family dynamics. It's not your typical feel-good holiday film, but its take on Christmas makes it a cult classic for those looking for something different. Coming in at number 4 is another maybe controversial choice on my list because a lot of you probably hate this movie, but I happen to love it. The 2000 version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. When The Grinch came out in 2000, people didn't think that Jim Carrey could ever replace the animated version of The Grinch, but here we are nearly 25 years later, and I think that Jim Carrey has become the version of the classic character. His performance as the Grinch is the heart and soul of the film. His over-the-top expressions, physical comedy, and sharp wit bring the iconic Green Grouch to life in a way that's both hilarious and heartfelt. Set in the whimsical world of Whoville, the story follows the Grinch, a grumpy, misunderstood creature who despises Christmas and decides to ruin it for the cheerful Whos by stealing all their presents and decorations. However, a chance encounter with the adorable Cindy Lou Who starts to thaw his icy heart. The film is visually vibrant, with dazzling set designs and extravagant costumes that capture the quirky spirit of Dr. Seuss's original illustrations. Normally, I don't like it when movies try to expand the backstory of a character because I don't really need to know what made him who he is, but somehow I think this all works great for the Grinch and adds to his eventual turn to the good side on Christmas morning. This movie also has a special place in my heart because for about 10 years in a row, my wife, my daughter, and I would go to Universal Studios Hollywood for Grinchmas on Christmas Eve, and then we'd watch this movie that night when we got home. Come to think of it, I don't know if I've seen the end of this movie in years. And now number 3, the story of a man who was raised as an elf and just wants to find his dad. Elf. I refused to watch Elf for years because I had a deep hatred of Will Ferrell. It was finally after Talladega Nights I started finding him funny, so then I gave Elf a chance at Christmas and immediately fell in love with the film. Directed by Jon Favreau, Ferrell stars as Buddy, a human raised by elves on the North Pole who embarks on a journey to New York City to find his real father. Will Ferrell's performance is pure magic. His childlike innocence and relentless cheerfulness turn every scene into a laugh-out-loud moment. The supporting cast, featuring Jimmy Caan as Buddy's grumpy dad and Zooey Deschanel as the charming love interest, adds depth to the festive fun. The film strikes a perfect balance between slapstick humor and heart. It's packed with quotable lines and iconic scenes that have cemented it as a holiday staple. But beyond the humor, Elf carries a timeless message about the power of kindness, family, and believing in the magic of Christmas. With its sets, feel-good story, and unforgettable performances, Elf is truly a must-watch, even if you don't like Will Ferrell. My number 2 favorite Christmas movie is one that I bet a lot of you rank as number 1, and it is a classic, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. If you had told me in 1989 that this would quite possibly become the holiday movie of our time, I wouldn't have believed you. Not that it wasn't awesome, because it was, but who could have seen this coming? Directed by Jeremiah S. Chechik and written by the great John Hughes, Christmas Vacation has Chevy Chase returning as Clark Griswold, an eternally optimistic dad determined to give his family the perfect Christmas, no matter how many things go hilariously wrong. Chevy is in peak form as the well-meaning but hapless Clark, whose relentless pursuit of holiday perfection leads to everything from a disastrous Christmas tree hunt to the over-the-top light displays that pretty much short-circuit the entire neighborhood. The supporting cast, including Beverly D'Angelo as the patient wife Ellen, and Randy Quaid as the always awesome cousin Eddie, adds layers of absurdity and charm to the mix. And it doesn't stop there, as each and every character delivers scene-stealing moments that we quote year in and year out. But underneath the slapstick humor, it captures the stress and joy of family gatherings during the holiday season, making it both hilarious and surprisingly heartwarming. With the mix of outrageous comedy and nostalgic warmth, Christmas Vacation has rightfully earned its place as an all-time holiday classic. I recently had the honor to talk to the director of that movie, so here is my interview with Mr. Jeremiah S. Chechik. Hey Jeremiah, thank you so much for being on Gary Talks.
You're very welcome. Nice to be here.
Before we get into everything, my first question is, before you directed this movie, were you a fan of other Christmas movies or TV specials?
Absolutely not. In fact, it's kind of known that I'd never seen the first two uh, vacation movies either.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I guess as far as the other vacation movies go, at least this way you were able to come in with a clean slate and not feel like you owed anything to the previous movies.
Well, that was my decision that I had made. I just wanted to make the film in I guess, in the spirit that John Hughes had written it. He adopted or adapted a short story that he wrote for the Harvard Lampoon. It was called Christmas 59, but someone who effectively destroys his family trying to make the best Christmas ever. And I was making a lot of commercials at the time, and they kind of picked me. Just, I don't think they picked me out of a hat, but it certainly felt, wow. The longer story and how I got the gig, but I hadn't been doing any comedy. I, wasn't really known for any comedy, certainly in my commercial days.
So then when you got the job, were you like, why me? Or, did you just immediately want to jump in and make this your first feature film?
Well, I didn't want to jinx it. So I'm saying, are you guys stupid? Why hire me? I didn't do that. But I did later on, after the film had come out, I remember asking Mark Canton, who was the head of production at the time, what did you hire me? And he said, you shoot beautiful pictures and you're a funny guy. So I took that, okay, I'll go with that.
I do want to say that the scene that always sticks out to me that really shows your skills as a director is the one where Clark is up in the attic and he's watching those old-timey movies, and even when I saw the movie when it first came out and I didn't understand his feelings, I could tell this was a very special scene. And for you to be able to put it in right after the great physical comedy of Chevy stepping on the boards and getting himself hit in the face, and it didn't feel out of place, I think that just really shows your skills as a director.
Well, thank you for being kind, but I always knew that in order to make a successful comedy, and my own interpretation of a successful comedy is not necessarily one that just makes good box office, but one that hits a lot of different notes and is resonant and stays with you. And that scene wasn't heavily scripted like that. There was some broad stuff in the attic, and I really wanted to do that, push John in that direction. So I remember I don't even know if I had real pages on this, but I had it in my head what I wanted to do. Of course, I wanted to take it from the kind of classic absurd, which is the stepping on the boards. What old comedy is not funny without somebody getting smacked in the head with a board?
Especially Chevy Chase over and over and over.
Like, the first time is like, oh yeah, that's funny. Second time is like, what? And the third time you don't see coming, and there it is. And that's the big laugh. And of course, once you settle into that, then, the gear change, the music change, and all of that stuff where you really, at least I was attempting to create the bond of what drove Clark to be as insane as he was in his notion to create something good is because of his deep emotional connection, his love for his family, what came before and what came after, even the quirkiest of them.
Well, I could easily just sit here and toss out my favorite scenes for you to talk about, and this conversation would go on for over an hour, but I do want to bring up that moment when Chevy finally gets all the lights to come on in the house. The way you built that was perfect.
We build up the sense of expectation, having gone through all of the stuff of kind of stringing the lights, planning the lights. Of course, when he does it, nothing happens. That particular moment was extremely important to me. And later on, when I did my first test screening, and I was sitting next to Terry Semmel, who was chairman at the time of Warner's, so I was deathly paranoid because I thought, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing my movie with an audience, and quite possibly the very last time I will do so and be driven out of Hollywood immediately, right? So I had no idea. I was kind of ashen and scared. But there was that moment where he did that, plugged it in, nothing came on, and the entire audience groaned. And I turned to Terry and he turned to me and we smiled at each other. And at that moment, I knew that the movie was going to be a hit movie. Not in terms of its legacy and how long it's lasted. That's up to the the gods of film. What do I know? But I knew that people were along with him in an emotional way. Beyond the laughs, beyond all of that, they cared. They felt his pain, as absurd as that feels now, or to look back on.
Yeah.
So I knew that if they felt what he felt, then because I knew where we were going, that I was able then to relax and enjoy the screening with a little more confidence.
This is truly a great cast, and so many of them had years and years of experience, not just, Chevy and Beverly. Was it intimidating for you to direct these guys on your first film?
That's an easy one to address. Outside of Randy and Beverly and Chevy, I cast the rest of them. So those were my choice of actors.
Okay, yeah.
John was involved in, I think it was Uncle Buck at the time, I think. But I brought in actors, I met them, some of them read, some of them didn't. But and E.G. Marshall, Bill Hickey, those actors were all extremely skilled dramatic actors. Certainly hiring Make Estelle, Betty Boop, that was easy for me. That also, oh, I want to work with that legend. You know what I mean? How great. But to be honest, I hired those people to surround myself with people who knew a lot more about filmmaking and had more experience than I. And I told them that if I acted like an idiot, if I didn't know what I was doing, if I was just walking into posts, call me on it. I'd listen. You know what I mean?
Were there any aspects of working on this film then that was difficult?
The thing that's not familiar when you're making your first movie for a studio is the studio system.
Oh, that makes sense.
And again, lucky, um, I had John Hughes as my producer, who was a giant. So even though he was in Chicago, um, if I had issues, I remember one issue, the studio wanted me. Oh, they wanted to get rid of the cat, the cat getting electrocuted.
Wow.
So instead of like just being, presenting myself as an asshole and going like, no way, this is my movie. I'm not gonna. No, I went like, sure, whatever. If you think that's right, just check with John to make sure that he's okay with it. And then I would hang up and I'd call John. I'd go, they're going to call you. Get rid of the caption. Don't take the call. And sure enough, Um, the irony, of course, is in the cards. People fill out cards for previews, or they used to. Um, the cat scene was the number one favorite scene. I'm
Wow.
not, I'm not saying that because I think I'm a genius. No, these are scripted moments by John, and I loved it, and I think I did the Foley sound of the cat being electrocuted, like something like that in the Foley room when we were re-recording sound.
Well, speaking of Foley, I do have to ask you about one part because this is my wife's favorite moment in the movie. And I should also say that this movie is not only my wife's favorite Christmas movie, but it's her favorite movie of all time. But that moment when Snot starts yakking under the table, every single time she hears that dog barfing sound, she cracks up. How did you guys come up with that?
Oh, there was one of our Foley artists. Who's a genius at dog vomit sounds.
Oh, he just yakking on a bone. He got it up.
So, what's the magic of this movie that really makes it have everlasting popularity?
Uh, I, you don't see it as a classic. It's a funny movie, but I thought, well, how can I make this movie timeless? I did not want the house to look super cool. I wanted it to look like any given house. Could be your parents' house, could be your grandparents' house, could be your house. I mean, what clothes they wore, that was very considered. Some of the hairdos on the women, yeah, well, you can't affect that. But even that is not like the kids looked any different than they do today. And so that was very, very important in terms of the art direction. In other words, to keep it as much as possible timeless.
And the music as well, because other than the opening theme, everything else you used was like older Christmas songs.
Yes, I was just trying to sustain what I would consider the classic um, moments that we either consciously or unconsciously feel around Christmas. Part of it's, go into a store and ching, 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 all of that. I mean, we may be aware of it, we may not, but there's that feeling of the Christmassy vibe.
Finally, how surprised are you that this is considered one of the greatest Christmas movies ever made?
The fact that years later now, that it has such a strong cultural identity. I mean, it's way beyond me. Um, it is really, I think, an affirmation of some of the decisions that I had made to keep it off the calendar timeline of present, of to try and set it in a world that was pure Americana.
Well, I think it's an understatement to say that you nailed it. Thank you so much for being a part of this very special Christmas episode of Gary Talks.
You're very, very kind to have had me, and I hope people have a good Christmas there.
And now for my number one. When I told my wife this was my favorite Christmas movie, she said, "Really?" When I told one of the stars of the movie, Alfre Woodward, that I watch it every single year, she said, "You do? That movie?" Yes, apparently a lot of you don't love this one as much as I do, but my all-time favorite Christmas movie is Scrooged. My wife thinks I'm insane for ranking this above Christmas Vacation, but how could I not? It's about a guy who bases his entire life on television, until the point where television becomes his entire life. What do you mean that's one of the reasons he becomes a Scrooge? I think it's awesome. Directed by Richard Donner, the film reimagines the classic holiday tale with a 1980s edge. Bill Murray plays Frank Cross, a cynical, cold-hearted TV executive who's lost all sense of holiday spirit as he ruthlessly pushes his staff to deliver a live Christmas Eve broadcast. Bill Murray is truly the heart of this film, delivering a pitch-perfect performance that balances humor and vulnerability. His journey from a selfish, Scrooge-like boss to a man who rediscovers kindness is filled with witty one-liners, absurd humor, and over-the-top characters. Scrooge stands out for its offbeat tone and the satirical take on holiday movies. It's packed with clever visual gags, quirky cameos, and a memorable soundtrack that captures the spirit of the season while still keeping its edge. The film's blend of dark humor and heartfelt moments hits just the right notes, especially in its feel-good ending that serves as a reminder of the importance of kindness and redemption. Really, the only way a movie could top Scrooged on my list is if they actually made The Night the Reindeer Died, starring Lee Majors. So that was my top 10 favorites. What are your favorite Christmas movies? Be sure and go to GaryTalks.tv, find me on social media, leave a comment, shoot me a message, let me know which ones you love to watch each and every year. Next week, I'll begin my annual top 10s as I look at my top 10 favorite TV shows of 2024. See you then.
From capes to tapes, Gary's on the case. He's breaking down each scene, every place. On Gary Talks, he's quick with his peculiar wits. From plot twists to the comic strips.